Welcome to Your Wealthy Self. I'm Regina Martinelli, and today we are on your journey in becoming your wealthy self, both inside and out. This is a show that uses money as a lens to find out how good you can stand your life getting before you subconsciously have to send the money, abundance, love, health, etc. away. Or how good can you stand it before having to make what's important to you a struggle or hard to obtain. This show is about looking at what's in the way of you having what you want so we can shift those blocks, allowing you to create your wealthy self, and you can have it with ease, with joy and certainty. I'm so happy you're here. Today, I want to talk about acknowledgement, specifically acknowledging what is going on for you so you can more easily move towards what you desire. This is not going to be your typical acknowledgement practice where we feel thankful for the great people and happenings in your life, full of wonderful, heartfelt gratitude. No, this is not going to be that type of acknowledgement. This or that type of gratitude and acknowledgement is great to do, and it provides a lot, but that's not what we're up to today. Today, we're going to do some deeper work. We're going to look at some things in your life that are not so comfortable and are not so pleasant to acknowledge, and it's not so pleasant to include them in your experience without prejudice, without guilt, without shame or resistance. This is really important part. So I'll say it again. It's about including what happened to you without prejudice, guilt, shame, or resistance. As you may know, when you resist something, when you wish it wasn't there or that it never happened, or you try to shove it down deep, that act of resisting actually keeps it in place, because in order to resist something, it has to be there for you to push against it. And when we include all of that thing that we're trying to resist in our experience, the thing that we wish hadn't happened, when we include it without resistance, without denying it, then it loses its power over us. It can start to fade away. The energy can begin to complete. So our intention is to start acknowledging what's been in the way to help shift those blocks so you can have more of what's really important to you. Going into these deeper areas is all part of the transformational journey in creating your wealthy self. So you're not going to want to miss this episode. First of all, acknowledgement is about looking at what is true in your life, what is working for you and what is not working for you. Being honest with yourself about the things you don't want to look at. It's acknowledging what has happened in your life so that you can let it go. Letting it go so it will stop taking up real estate in your mind and draining your vital energy. You want to let it go, then there's new open space for you to decide on purpose what will go there. It's similar to gardening. When you pull out the weeds at your garden box, there's a room for things that you want to nurture and flourish. There's open, fertile ground to seed new things to arise and bloom. This is what we are doing by acknowledging what you have been resisting. So let's unpack this a little bit more. What is the thing you most don't want to say? What don't you want to admit to yourself, yet you know it's there? What haunts you? What are you avoiding looking at? And if you don't have clarity about this, then let's look at the symptoms of what happens to you when you have this resistance or these things that you shoved away, to see if we can track back to what might have been going on for you. So have you ever experienced any of these? Have you ever had a hard time making a decision? Or do you feel overwhelmed about what it is you want and going for it? You may tend to say, I'm just going to do it all myself. Or you feel like you are in this alone and you can't trust anyone to help you. You need to please others, to be that people pleaser in order to feel safe. Or do you identify with having imposter syndrome, where you can't let others see who you really are because you think they'll find out that you're a fraud? And you may have the thoughts of, who am I to have this level of success or be deserving of this life? These are all symptoms of underlying subconscious beliefs that are running. And the beliefs are most likely got laid down early in your life, in your childhood. For example, let's talk about it being hard to make a decision. When it's really hard for you to make a decision, you don't feel like you have the clarity or certainty that you need to decide something. So you may freeze up and not make any decision at all. And you will say to yourself, I don't know what decision to make. So you just put it off and you think to yourself, I'm not good at making decisions. I just can't decide. Part of this could be that you were afraid to make the wrong decision. And that presupposes that there's a right decision. And there's enough fear about making the wrong decision that you'd rather not make any decision at all than to make the wrong one. Is this you or someone you know? Much of this starts in childhood when you've had a parent where you weren't allowed to make mistakes, to try things yourself, to learn through trial and error. Because if you made a mistake, you might have been scolded for doing it wrong, or ridiculed or punished for trying to learn. As we know, learning can be messy. It's as if you weren't allowed to be yourself in how you explored your world, with how you approached doing something, or how you learned it, and especially if that learning was messy. Another way the inability to make decisions can get formed, in my experience, is from having a parent who did things for you. They made sure it was always done right, so they did it for you instead of allowing you to go through your own process of learning how to do it. Like they jumped in and did your homework. They jumped in and finished that project for you, or finished coloring within the lines. Because that parent did it for you, you weren't allowed to use your own inner knowing in making a decision and learning from that decision. It's like if you were a child and you chose to wear your favorite short sleeve t-shirt outside during the winter, and all of a sudden you realize that you're really cold because you forgot your jacket. Well, that's one way to learn, right? But when you have a parent who's always jumping in and solving that for you, you don't get the chance to learn it yourself. And this has the prolonged subconscious effect of that child feeling like they cannot do it themselves as they grow into an adult. So if your parent is always or was always overtaking your project and doing it for you, then some part of you thinks, maybe they're right. Maybe I am not good enough or not capable enough to do it myself. And that belief starts to solidify and bleed out into other areas of your life. So you freeze or you hold back at trying new things or taking a risk or showing that you are capable because you're afraid you will get it wrong or that you are not capable to make a right decision. Now, there's also part of you in this scenario that knows this is not the truth of you and knows that you are capable, able, and smart enough to figure it out, whether there are mistakes along the way or not. And that part of you resents that your parent always stepped in, took over, and directed every move. Because this action by your parent made you doubt yourself, made you believe that you couldn't do it, and it made you feel not good enough or smart enough. And that part of you that knows the truth of you, that you are good enough and capable, this part is wanting to come out. It's battling the other parts of you that doubts itself. And if you tend to hold back and keep yourself small and fear trying new things, that just means there's more of you, more parts of you voting on the side of its safety, of keeping you safe and staying small, versus the parts of you that are voting that you are capable, it's safe to learn, and mistakes and all, and to figure it out. There are ways to get these two different parts of teams on the same page with the same intent. If you were not allowed to make these mistakes and learn from them without judgment, then you most likely didn't get the practice of making decisions and learning from those early decisions in a supportive environment of trying new things. When this happens, you don't trust yourself to make your own decisions. And it also causes you to be afraid of making the wrong decision or any decision because you did something your parent didn't like. You get in trouble. So how do you make the right decision when you're in this pickle? You can't make a decision because you don't know the right one is. And you don't want to be wrong because that has consequences that you don't want to relive. And the acknowledgement belief here is the assumption that there is a right or wrong decision when there are actually just choices. There's just different paths to take. Neither one is right or wrong. Another symptom I want to talk about is people pleasing. This I work with a lot with my women clients. Many times how people pleasers come about is when the young child becomes a target, most likely from a parental figure, and the child has been targeted for being too much of something or not enough of something else. And the child tries to shapeshift to not upset a parent because that child doesn't feel safe being who they are. So the child tries to diminish who they are, contort themselves into something else that's more acceptable to that parent. And many times children are trying to keep their parents from getting upset by not being too displeasing to them. So they'll try to fade into the background, not speak up, not attract attention, not make much of a fuss, and not demand too much or be needy. So if they can distort themselves in this way that has them be less of a target, it helps them feel like they fit into their parents' perception of how they should be, even though they know it's not the truth of who they are. And that is incredibly painful. And it's heartbreaking because they don't feel they're free to be themselves. Yet it's a strategy to survive. What that creates in children is they can never really feel safe because they know when they start to feel safe for too long, that's when that parent is ready to explode, come after them, or have an irrational upset, and it catches that child off guard. This type of parental behavior is very confusing for a young child. So that child will make up what all that means, why that parent is upset, and often unpredictable. That unpredictability of a parent can really destabilize a child's sense of worth, their sense of safety and security within themselves and in their world. Usually that child then decides something about themselves. And this is where it all starts. That child decides that they are not good enough, not lovable, or they cannot need too much. These are all trance beliefs, and none of them are true. This strategy of not needing too much can also dovetail with the belief of needing to do it all yourself, which is the next symptom we're going to talk about. This pattern of needing to do it all yourself and not trusting others for help and support. So if a child doesn't get what they need time and time again from those they most depend on to give them love, nurturing, safety, food, and care, it's heartbreaking because that child is so urgently dependent on their parents to get what they need to survive and feel safe. And when they don't get it, they're stuck. There's a part of their brains that fear for their survival. Now, I'm just going to make a quick note here. Sure, there's probably times if you've had a child where they've had to cry for some time in their room or needed food and you didn't get to them as soon as you wanted to. I'm not talking about those isolated incidents. I'm talking about time and time and time again, where it's more of a standard. So this little child then cannot trust that they'll get what they need, and there's nothing they can do about it. And it's devastating to these helpless little beings. It sets off their nervous system to be on high alert, which is not good for their overall well-being. And then this child then grows up to be an adult that says, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm not going to rely on anyone else because I'm not going to get it from anybody. I can't trust anybody to help me. Underlying this is the pattern that your younger self is afraid to need because it was so heartbreaking, soul-crushing to not get what you needed as a little child who relies solely and so desperately on those taking care of you for your survival. So the best strategy to avoid ever being in this desperate and devastating experience again is to do it all yourself and not rely on anyone to provide anything you need. This actually shields you from the disappointment of being let down like you were as a child. Because children who experience this will do anything not to relive that experience of being helpless and not getting what they vitally needed because it puts their survival on alert. And it's really scary. Again, you'll hear them say, if I don't do it for myself, no one will. Or I'm not going to need anything from anybody. I'm going to do it all myself. There's no one else to help me. I cannot rely on anybody in my life. And that's definitely one way to do it. It's one way to compensate for the lack of trust from not getting your basic necessary needs met or being taken care of in a way that didn't set off a fear for your survival. This strategy also has us trying to resist our own experience of ourselves to avoid the pain we felt as children. The experience we're trying to avoid here is that we're not good enough or worthy of someone helping us. The idea of letting go and trusting that someone will take care of you feels incomprehensible and like you'll just lose everything. It'll all fall apart. Because the trance belief is, I cannot trust anyone to help me. It's all up to me. And some children will go even further in their decision. And they'll decide that they're not good enough, they're not worthy enough to have someone help them. This is another trance belief of not being worthy or good enough to have the love and support and care that you need. I want to give a side note too about how the brain works to reinforce your trance beliefs. If you have people in your life that you absolutely cannot rely on, then that experience provides evidence that you are right. You do have to do it all yourself. This is another way, excuse me, that your brain is making sure its predictions about how life is are correct. If you remember a previous episode I did on money beliefs, the belief about having to work hard for money, this belief about having to work hard for money can actually be someone's experience. Not because it's true that you have to work hard for money. It's true in someone's experience because we will get our beliefs to be true. Our brain filters for evidence that it's true, that there is no one you can rely on for help, or there is no one else who will do it for you. And to add salt to the wound, that part of your brain will sort for people, relationships, and situations that support your beliefs that there is no one you can trust to do it for you. Your brain will pull in people who are not reliable in helping you. If you do attract someone, if the off chance you do attract someone who is reliable and willing to help you, your brain will distort their help. Your brain will not register it as someone helping you, or your brain will find a way to send them away. Isn't the brain a crazy thing? And the good news is these beliefs and limiting patterns in your brain are all revisable. And I will talk more about how the brain works in upcoming episodes. So this is where you can acknowledge I didn't get what I needed as a child, so I don't trust anyone to do it for me. I believe I have to do it all myself. Or it may be acknowledging I didn't get what I needed when it mattered the most, so I don't trust others to provide what I need. Now, whether you remember your childhood or not, these experiences are entanglements. They are imprints that form limiting beliefs about who we are, how deserving we feel, and how loved or safe we feel in the world. These limiting beliefs cause all sorts of struggles in our adult life. And that's why I really wanted to do the show, because I want to start letting you wonderful, lovely people know it's not your fault that you have these impoverished thoughts about how much you can trust, how safe you can feel being yourself, how much you can need. All of these patterns and beliefs are revisable. And once you revise them, you can have a better experience of yourself and your life. And that is where certainty, inner peace, and daily joy live. So that part of your brain, that's called the reptilian brain, is really invested in survival strategies to keep you safe during your young years. That's all it does in your life is keep you safe, your reptilian brain. And the survival patterns that it created are still running in your adult brain, making them now outdated programming, especially if they were created during those really tense family dynamic times when you weren't getting what you needed. This old programming needs to be updated. It's like updating your phone. And there are versions of you that do not know it's been 40 or 50 years since your childhood wounds happened. This reptilian brain doesn't track time, so it still thinks you are that little child experiencing the trauma. The reptilian brain doesn't do time. It's always just now. Therefore, it's still on high alert for your safety, which can cause a lot of the experiences we're talking about. Another way to see it is, as we age, we don't move to another age. We actually collect ages throughout our lives. And when you are 48, you still have this 1, 2, 3, 4-year-old younger version of you that doesn't feel okay to make mistakes or take chances for fear of getting in trouble. So you've been carrying that frightened little 3-year-old for decades within your adult self. And that 3-year-old experience is still locked in you. And she's still perceiving the world from this view of it's not safe to need something from someone else, or it's not okay to trust others to give her what she needs. This can make life a bit overwhelming, uncertain, and stressful when these subconscious patternings are running 24/7. So acknowledging that this happened and this is what it was like for you without pushing any of it away, without trying to change it or resist it. This is not saying that what happened is okay. It's really about not resisting that this was your experience and to let go of the guilt and shame of whatever it was, because that is not the truth of you. When a child who cannot make sense of what is happening, she usually decides there must be something wrong with herself if her family is treating her this way. That decision became part of the foundation of how she operates in life and what causes these symptoms. And knowing this, we can go deeper to address the root source. versus just trying to mitigate the symptoms. Again, I'm not saying the decisions made were not valid based on how you were treated. I'm saying these beliefs are outdated and not useful anymore. This is a very debilitating way to see things, no matter how dire or painful your experience was. Your adult self deserves better. You deserve more useful beliefs about yourself for who you are today. So take a few deep breaths. And there's something I want you to do. I want you to take your hand, one hand and another hand, and I want you to find a knuckle on your hand. And I want you to lightly press your fingers over one knuckle. And I want you to say out loud how old you are. Like, I'm 42 or I'm 48. And when you say it, I want you to squeeze this knuckle and feel your age. Like, I don't mean the old way. I mean like your adult self. Feel your adult body, your presence, how much space you take up in the world in your body. I am 48 years old, whatever it is, and squeeze that knuckle. All right. And then once you do that, release your knuckle. But remember which knuckle it is, because you are anchoring your adult age. Now I want you to feel into that decision that the younger you made about your safety, about your worth, about how much you were allowed to need. I want you to feel that experience, the one that we're trying to acknowledge, the one that brings up these uncomfortable feelings. So when you feel that, I want you to then squeeze this knuckle again and release that age into this younger version of you. Like that 3-year-old that's like, it's not okay to need. I have to do it all myself. I want you to feel that and then squeeze this knuckle, take a deep breath, and remember that you are 42 years old, or maybe you're 55 or 62 or 48. And breathe that through your belly. Breathe that deep into your belly, letting your younger self know you are alive. You survived to this age that you are. You are safe now. Breathe. Let her know, that younger you make it out alive. You make it to at least this age. Keep squeezing that knuckle. She needs to be updated about who's in charge of her safety now. Deep breaths. See, these survival strategies were supposed to be temporary. The strategies of contorting ourselves and not needing anything to feel safe, but our systems never shut off these strategies. Then decades later, we got older, and that keeps us in the fight, flight, or freeze mode, where we are constantly constricting our life force energy. It can be exhausting to our systems, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So bringing acknowledgement to what happened and letting that younger you know you're an adult now can really help to loosen the pattern's imprint. Keep taking deep breaths. So there is not one part of you that the universe has an issue with or wants to change. There is no part of you that the universe, all that is, or God, however you say it, there is no part of you that the universe thinks should not exist. The universe doesn't think you should be any different than you are. There is no part of you that is not loved, that is not only appreciated, but also cared for by all that is, the universe, God, and actually cherished. There is no part of you that is not cherished by all that is, even the parts you have a hard time acknowledging and appreciating about yourself. The universe cherishes all of you exactly as you are. The purpose of this show is to help you awaken from those trance beliefs and patterns that hold you back from having more certainty, self-appreciation, sense of fulfillment, and daily joy in whatever is most important to you. I want to help you get the support you're seeking. So let me know if you have questions or topics you'd like us to tackle. And you can send those to Your Wealthy Self at 360tvlive.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if you know you want to revise these old stuck patterns and you're willing to invest in yourself and your future and you're ready to change your life, go to yourwealthyselfcall.com. There it is. And book some time for us to explore our way, how to work together. Thank you for tuning in to Your Wealthy Self, creating inner and outer wealth. I love and adore you. You are an incredibly beautiful and precious being. And please know, you are enough just as you are. I look forward to being with you next week here on Your Wealthy Self.